What's up, guys? Kevin Goetz here from Mute Profit, helping you achieve musical success. So today, I woke up to like 30 messages from various subscribers asking me to talk about my thoughts on how net neutrality being repealed is going to impact us online musicians. And I didn't want to do it, but fine. Look, alright, I'm not an expert, but neither is anyone else talking about this, so let me tell you what I know, and we'll go from there. Also, for some reason, net neutrality has become a partisan issue where it's like the right wants to get rid of it and the left wants to keep it. That is bullshit. Seriously, guys, this is not a political issue, or at least it shouldn't be. In any case, so everybody already knows by now, the argument for net neutrality is that the big, bad, scary broadband companies are going to start putting essentially microtransactions, for all the gamers out there who watch this, into their packages. So maybe you need an extra fee to play video games, or an extra fee to do this or that, or they'll throttle one streaming service while promoting another that has gotten in bed with that particular cable company, right? Everyone's already heard all these arguments, and everyone is freaking out about it. Except for the people who market their music for a living, which is what we're talking about here. And the thing is, like, yeah, there is the potential that they will do some really uncool and really shitty things. But how big is that potential? Let's look at a couple of other factors that don't get talked about. And before anyone jumps down my throat, because this is a ridiculously hot button issue right now, do not misunderstand me. It's most likely a terrible thing, right? Because that's what 90% of people seem to think. There are arguments that this is an improvement. For me right now, all I am saying is that I do not think it's the internet apocalypse that all of us have been talking like it is since SOPA back in, what was that, 2012, 13, 14, one of those? The first thing that doesn't get talked about enough, and it's really kind of ironic to me, is that we already do not have a fair and open internet. You know, you see the hard activists for net neutrality who are like, our fair and open internet is in jeopardy. Wake the hell up! YouTubers know this better than anyone. The tech companies are the monopolies that you guys are afraid the broadband companies are going to be. YouTube actively censors things that they disagree with, and it's their right to do so normally. You know, any business can disavow views that they do not like and refuse the use of their platform for those views. However, under something called the Communications Decency Act, which is what YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, all the social media platforms are regulated under, they are essentially saying that they are public forums. They are simply a space to allow people to share their views. That is not the case when you have Facebook blocking people from sharing links to WikiLeaks during the last election, whichever side of the election you were on, that's not being allowed to share your views. When you have the government wanting to regulate Facebook even further so as to make sure the whole Russian ads scandal doesn't happen again. When you have YouTube actively targeting down certain political sides that they disagree with. When you have PayPal, Patreon, groups like those disavowing conservatives for just being conservatives. We do not have a fair and open internet. And I'm not a conservative, so before anyone thinks I'm partisan on this, no. I don't give a shit. I'm just saying, these are concrete examples of the tech companies taking a side, and that is in defiance of the set of laws that they are currently supposed to be regulated under, at least in my understanding. Again, I'm not an expert. So looking into something a bit more concrete here, right? Because that's a bit more like ideological. If you're looking at it concretely as how it will impact us as online musicians, as YouTubers, as whatever the hell you do, right? Chances are it's not going to do anything. Especially for YouTubers. YouTubers have nothing to worry about because the cable companies are not the mobile carriers. And YouTube is almost all mobile right now anyway. Or at least it's projected to be very soon. The broadband cable companies have stayed stagnant for years. There hasn't been a whole lot of competition, free market innovation like the conservatives talk about. However, there absolutely has been with your mobile carrier. You have one mobile carrier saying that Netflix doesn't count towards your data cap. Another mobile carrier says Spotify doesn't count towards your data cap. So it creates an arms race to see who can exempt the most from the data cap and stay profitable. Because of course people are going to go with that. And the thing is, net neutrality doesn't do a damn thing to the mobile carriers. They have the free market license to set their own rules. And the marketplace of ideas shows that people go with the ones that suit them. I have Charter Business as my broadband carrier because I get a lot of features from Charter Business that are good for me that I would not get from AT&T, for instance. In fact, I used to have AT&T, and it was so much more expensive for the same things I needed. And then Charter came out and were like, hey, look, business bundle. Business people need a business bundle, right? And I'm like, yeah, give me that, right? So, and I understand there's the argument that in like rural Mississippi, they only have cable one. There are places where there's only one broadband provider, and that is where net neutrality would have been a good thing to keep, assuming that the broadband provider does this. However, there have been essentially monopolies preventing other smaller ISPs from coming out and starting up. And it has been argued that with the repeal of net neutrality, that will no longer be the case. I'm not convinced of that, but it's worth keeping an eye on. Let's assume the absolute worst case scenario. Let's assume they start throttling everything for some reason, because they totally have incentive to do that. They're not just going to drive more people to their mobile devices, which is probably what's going to happen if they do that. It's probably just going to be, well, I use my phone for 90% of my internet browsing anyway, so fuck it. And real quick, I know I said I was going somewhere with this, but my own argument sidetracked me. I understand the fear for online gamers. I understand you guys are afraid that, you know, it's the one thing that your mobile device can't do is play online intensive video games. I get that. But to me, that looks like a prime free market opportunity for the ISPs to start competing and saying, well, hey, hold on. These fuckers want to make it so you can't watch your porn? Well, hey, we have nothing against Pornhub. Come over here. Like, do you see maybe why that would be a bad idea for AT&T to say, oh, maybe we don't want you playing World of Warcraft at full internet speeds, when Charter's going to be like, hey, we're fine with that. Fuck AT&T, right? Why are you still with those fuckers? And they'll put a contract buyout, you know, they help you get out of your contract, pay the early withdrawal fee, because they know it will pay for itself because you are with them. And that drives AT&T to go, ooh, that was a bad idea. Our bad, guys, and hey, to make up for it, to all of you who stayed loyal to us, we're gonna drop our rates. You know, that's the conservative argument, and there's some slight merit to it, assuming you live in a place where there is more than one broadband provider. Couple other points. First off, for online musicians, okay, they're probably not gonna touch Facebook. The ISPs have nothing at all to gain from throttling Facebook. Nothing. You know, it doesn't make sense. From a business standpoint, these companies spend more money on data analysis to learn how to stay profitable than anybody else in the fucking world. The tech companies are among the highest spenders of data analytics. And they really should know better than to fuck with people's social media. If Facebook's probably going to stay untouched, that's most of what musicians need the internet for anyway. Advertising is a big deal. But there's this handy little thing called Moore's Law, which is a law based on the way computer science has evolved that states essentially that the quality of something doubles every 2 years. Like, that's a kind of an ugly way to summarize it, but for all intents and purposes, quality doubles every 2 years with regard to technology. And most people are predicting that about 10 years from now, their fast lanes, you know, whatever the unthrottled shit that they would theoretically make you pay extra for, will be approaching gigabyte per second speeds. Okay, and of course it's going to scale up from where we are now before 10 years have passed. It's at this rate. So, doing the math there, even their throttled or less good speeds will still be faster than the internet speeds that we had in 2015 when all this shit was set up. The golden age of net neutrality will still end up having been slower than the slowest speeds we will have access to. Again, that's not to say that we don't need net neutrality, but I'm just saying calm down a little, guys. There's no evidence right now that people want to take away your social media or your porn. Speaking of people who do want to take away social media and porn, those tend to be the first things to go in countries that do allow government regulation of the internet. That's the other thing, like, Australia's internet speeds are complete crap. And people still buy music in Australia, still download music in Australia, still go on YouTube in Australia, still build incredible online teaching businesses in Australia if you're my buddy Chris Zupa. This is not going to be the end of the world. But my original point about government regulation was, look at, this is an extreme example, look at China. They regulate the fuck out of their internet. And the thing is, okay, before I go into this, I realized I forgot to explain something about the way net neutrality works. Net neutrality is essentially the FCC claiming the power to regulate these companies to whatever whim they have, essentially. But just saying, no, it's fine, we're not actually gonna do that, even though we could. And the argument that conservatives make is, what stops a future chairman of the FCC who has been bought out by some corporation or another from doing exactly what you guys are afraid the broadband ISPs are going to do? What stops an evangelical chairman from regulating against pornography? What stops a, communist chairman from regulating against anti-communist ideologies? So that's the fear there. Now, so net neutrality did give the FCC the ability to do exactly what people are afraid the broadband companies are going to do. The point of that is, that's where we end up with China, was exactly that. People who have the legal framework for the government to micromanage and regulate the ISPs, and then using their ideological stance to dictate what they're going to tell the companies to do. And the big tech companies, the guys who are so in favor of net neutrality, help totalitarian governments regulate their internet. Apple just complied with the Chinese government and pulled down all the apps that allowed the Chinese to get uncensored content. You can look this up. This was a huge news story. Pakistan asked Facebook to help them identify blasphemers, and a man was sentenced to death as a result of Zuckerberg and Facebook helping them identify him for what he posted on Facebook. Someone died because Zuckerberg helped them find the guy. In the UK, there are laws regulating what types of pornography can be streamed. If I remember right, some of them are really weird. Like, you should really look this up if you haven't. It's fascinating, the ones that they picked to ban. Also in the UK, they have a government branch that can arrest you for some things that you say on Twitter. Seriously? I guess those are some kind of hate speech laws, I don't know. That's what happens when you have excessive government control of the internet, which net neutrality did technically open the door for. And of course you have the Republicans being like, oh, Obama was a socialist and socialists want to be able to control everything. I don't fucking care. Stop making it political. What I'm trying to say to you guys, and what no one seems to want to understand, including some of the most respected people on YouTube who are freaking the fuck out about this, is that as of right now, there is literally no evidence that any of this is going to happen. As I have outlined, I'm not saying we need or don't need net neutrality. I'm not saying I'm for one side or the other. I have my opinions. I'm not going to share my opinions. It's not about my opinions. What I am just trying to say, guys, is calm the fuck down, because at least for my audience, for the online entrepreneur crowd, this really shouldn't hurt you. It really seems like this is not gonna be the internet culture is fucked that everyone is saying it is. And if I'm wrong, that sucks. Okay, that sucks. And I'm gonna have to find other ways to make my money. So I have a lot riding on this too. More than some of you do, because I actually make my living from the internet. And I am less worried than a lot of you guys are. Calm down, analyze both sides of the issue, come to your own conclusions, but stop parroting the message that the sky is falling, because it's a little early to be that panicked, and it's just not healthy. Stay positive, guys. Keep making awesome things, and I will see you in the next video.